Public Works.
Don't have a quorum, do we?
Yeah, we do. Parks and Rec meeting to order. First thing, we need to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Supervisor Hoken, seconded by Supervisor Wild. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ajos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda on page 1 is a request to backfill the position of the Up Yonder administrator. I think Ron had stated at the board meeting that Matt Sproul, 36 and a half years with the county, has just retired. So this would be to backfill Matt's position.
Hey, would somebody like to move this to the table? Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
The next item on page 2 of the agenda is to decrease the salary of that position. Again, Matt, who was here for 36 and a half years, Tim and I have done some research through the state and actually through other states as well as these environmental education positions, and they range in the range of $48,000 to $52,000 a year. So we thought for a starting position, a $50,000 a year salary would be adequate.
Okay, would somebody like to move this to the table? Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Lowe. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Carried.
Just a quick one, how much did you say that salary was? Oh, 50. Oh, that's what I was saying. That's fine, thank you.
The last resolution request is on page 3, and that is to create a new position at Up Yonder. This is a temporary position. I was under the assumption that we had actually kept this position in the budget and just defunded the position, but we actually removed the position out of the budget, so I'd like to put it back into the budget. This typically, during our summer programs and spring programs, it's nice to have that extra temp on board to help them out up there. We have a grant that you just passed at the last board meeting from the Glens Falls Foundation that gave us money to support this position. So I want to create the position again.
Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. Any discussion? Does that cover his entire...
It will.
You ready for the question? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
So last thing I have in here for a couple things for information for discussion. The first is next Saturday. You look at the flyer in the back of our agenda. It's the pancake breakfast up Yonder Farms. I think Ryan talked about possibly doing a committee meeting up at Up Yonder Farms. I know it's kind of difficult to do one up there because of the IT and recording the meetings, but I would invite everybody up to the pancake breakfast. It's a great time. They have some tours of the sugar house, some tapping demonstrations. But I'd really like to also, sometime later this summer, is if it's feasible, is to invite the whole committee up to take a look at Up Yonder Farms and see what we do up there.
Sounds good.
The last thing I had, I just brought this up to Matt. My fiscal manager just brought this up to me, and Ryan and I talked about it the other day. We reduced the budget quite a bit on the railroad this year, but the utility bills for the airport are averaging $1,300 to $1,500 a month. Now, the only place that we're actually heating is the Repariat station because of the water lines and such in there. Everything else is closed, but all the signal crossings that we have, while there is no sort of full power going to any of them anymore and they're all locked, they still need some type of electricity provided to keep a trickle charge on all the batteries. Otherwise, the battery replacements on those would be $3,000 a piece. And for the number of crossings that we have, that would be significant. So we only had $2,600 in for the budget for electrical, so next month I'll come back. I think we have enough right now to cover for this month's bill. So next month I'll come back looking for some funding until we do something with the railroad, split the electrical bills for the rest of the year.
Okay, Supervisor Hogan?
Kevin, who's responsible for the roads of the county?
Depends on where the properties are. If you're talking about plowing a road or
No.
maintenance of a road, typically that maintenance fell under the railroads before at the crossing. Now it's back on the county.
So it is ours.
It is now. Yeah. But again, there's a crossing out on River Road out in Thurman. If it's an issue with the road itself before the crossing, that would be the town's. But if it's a crossing or something to do with the crossing itself, that would fall back on the county.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, I know we no longer have a contract or anything with the previous users, but is there anything, have we heard anything, or in that case of...
Are you referring to the previous railroad operator?
Right.
I think I'll defer to the county administrator.
This committee requested that the county attempt to recover some of the revenue that we lost due to the contract being breached, and that process is underway.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Any update on what's happening?
With the railroad itself, I do hope to very, very soon have an invitation to bid out. I'm waiting to see if the town of Corinth still wants to partner up with the county in the event that we have an operating contract. If the town were to do a sale and the county were to do a sale, probably best for us to go our own way. But an operating contract with three parties is what we've done in the past, and it would be my hope that we could approach it that way, but I'm waiting for some feedback from the town. I should get that before the end of the week.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, we all set on the railroad?
Yes.
Supervisor Bramer?
Do we know anything further with the STB process?
Only thing that I know of, the last time I was on the website, is that they issued a 60-day, additional 60 days, which ends March 27th. Am I correct on the date?
And if I may, what is that related to?
To the abandonment action that was filed by New York State DEC, for New York State.
I think that deadline's been moved out a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's our understanding that there's still a negotiation going on with a freight company to purchase the Sanford Lake line, and that in the event that happens, there would be the idea would be that there'd be an agreement with DEC to not store cars on the line.
Anything further on that? Supervisor Garrity, you look like you're going to ask a question.
Not.
Okay.
You got that, Louis?
Sorry about that.
The last thing I had for committee is I received an email, actually Matt received an email for you, I was copied on it, regarding the bike path being opened to snowmobiles from Magic Forest to Lake George. Tim Benway and myself keep a close watch on the bike path in that area. When there's not a significant amount of snow, we make sure that the gates are closed, snowmobilers aren't going on it. Gina Minzer from the Lake George Chamber of Commerce sent the email that a couple had come up last Thursday, I believe it was, to go on to onto the bike path with their snowmobiles. Actually, maybe three couples to get down to the lake, and they couldn't get down because we had the bike path closed. Last week we had a little bit of snow. We also had some warm weather coming in. Tim and I had asked the snowmobile club hey, get out there on, say, Thursday night, groom the trail so that the trail buttons up a little bit tighter, and then allow it to open up for the weekend for the Winter Carnival. Again, these three couples didn't make it down to the lake on the trail because we had the trail closed. But from my perspective, and I think it's been discussed in this committee many times, it's preventive maintenance. Snowmobiles, when there's very little snow and the carbides on a snowmobile, do a lot of damage to that trail. Back in 2013, the county, not any of the snowmobile clubs, but the county paid $30,000 to have a slurry seal put from Magic Forest down to the lake. The following year, $11,000 was put in by the snowmobile clubs to repair that portion of the bike path. And then over the past 5 or 6 years, the county has been averaging $3,000 to $6,000 a year to do repairs in there, and not being charged to the snowmobile clubs. I think it's a great thing for the snowmobilers to use the trail down the lake, especially during Winter Carnival. My concern is, though, that Gina really would like to have this portion of the trail always open, and I just don't think that that's feasible. She's talked about some other treatments that they can do, like Old Ford uses concrete, special concrete on their crossings, but I can't concrete a bike path for 1.5 miles down to the lake. That would be a significant cost. Again, I thought she was going to be here today to discuss it a little bit, but those are some of the options she was looking at. Is can we do something more? Maybe we put the onus on the snowmobile clubs. Is whatever damage is caused, you guys have to pay for it.
Supervisor Dickinson?
Glad I can make it.
Thank you for attending.
We, the town, are anxious and hopeful of getting the snowmobiles off the trail. And I don't have to tell you, for the 50th time, I was on this board when we adopted those trails, and it was no motorized vehicles. And it's the only way it was approved. We had a holdout, no motorized vehicles. They meant it. And then I come back and they changed the rule. How can you do things like that? You made a commitment to the public and then you changed it. The bottom line is, we are attempting now to rebuild the Fort George Road. And when we do, we want to put in sidewalks. And we want one of the sidewalks that goes from the beach road all the way over to Route 9 to be a snowmobile trail in the winter. And then one of the 2 sidewalks on our entrance project we're going to dedicate as a snowmobile trail. The missing key is getting from Luzerne Road down to Wild West, but we eventually hope to do that. There's a good possibility we can do the trail along the side of the road there. There's quite a bit of room there for most of it. But that's eventually what we want to do, and get them off the bike trail. Problem you have with the bike trails, when you damage it, I mean, they were very good about coming in and paying to have it repaired, but it wasn't repaired in the same physical condition that the trail is on. So when you're a nut job bicyclist and you got those little tiny racing bikes with no treads, screaming down the bike trail 60 miles an hour, and a little water on the trail, and you hit one of those spots that repair, it's slippery as hell. Yeah. So there's all kinds of issues with it. I really want to get them off. They don't belong on there. Never should have let them go on there.
Supervisor McDevitt?
Yeah, I concur with Supervisor Dickinson. The trails were approved for non-motorized vehicles. Period, end of discussion. I've never have gotten the property owners to approve any basically having the opportunity to repair a bike trail, but again, non-motorized vehicles. Period, end of discussion.
Supervisor Bramer?
My concern about the
I know.
sidewalk
Does
issue
she have
is
a
when I
hand?
was down there last weekend, there were snowmobiles running up and down the sidewalks and trying to get across 9 to Prospect Mountain. It just seemed like a disaster waiting to happen, because they were jetting out where there's no crosswalk, and cars were stopping and then not stopping. It was
Well, that's the genealogy of snowmobiles. It's not dangerous. They wouldn't do it.
And it just
They
seems
do
like
cross
a
the
bad-
road there. They have one.
They have to go to Stewart's.
Right.
They get their
The one crossing right there by Stewart's is a main crossing. Now, the speed limit there is 40, but I mean, it's straight as an arrow. You can see them. We've never.
You could probably sign and
Yeah,
put some
we've never
flashing
had a
lights
problem.
there in the wintertime, say snowmobile crossing ahead or something like that.
Well, what are they
They've always
doing when
done.
someone's walking up the street on the sidewalk?
Well, we've had a little
Snowmobile
problem
program.
with the sidewalks and sidewalk maintenance. One of the sidewalks should be designated for pedestrians and the other should be snowmobiles. It hasn't seemed to work out that way for some reason, but we're working on it.
First year.
I went into Stewart's the other day, there was 25 more snowmobiles in there. 25.
Oh, we're looking forward to you getting that solved and open.
about $130,000 sidewalk snow blower. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Joe Johnson, trackless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we looked at a bunch of them, but we got one. The problem is, on the sidewalk in front of the Howard Johnsons, they put the light poles on the sidewalk. So you come down the snow blower and there's a light pole. Now, you going to go out on a road to get around it, or, you know, it's... So we've had those issues, and obviously you're not going to snowmobile down that sidewalk with the light poles in the way. And I don't think I'm going to convince anybody they should get out and shovel it. They didn't go over it.
City businesses do.
Okay, anything further on this? Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, you know, it's a tough thing, because I am a snowmobiler, and I know the amount of money that I spend going snowmobiling, and, you know, it's a catch-22, and it's not everybody's favorite sport, but it is some, and people that are into it, they do spend a lot of money. But one of the suggestions, I mean, it's only a mile on that bike, but, you know, I hate to say that, but, you know, a low speed limit, you know, and...
You
and,
can't.
and you enforce it, nobody can stay off that throttle. I don't think it'd be a problem writing a bunch of tickets that it would finally get around it, do the speed limit right here for the mile, or it gets closed down. You know, until we have the further solution, which I believe up along Route 9 there's, Dennis has said, to bring you from Luzerne up to the Wild West, so.
Go ahead.
I think that's a good suggestion. I'm not sure how you enforce it. I'm not sure who you're gonna stage on that trail day in, day out for a mile and a half to write tickets or issue tickets.
It's one of the problems you have with snowmobiles. They go by Gillette's parking lot there, and here's a field of snow, flatter than flat. There's no way you keep them up. 2 o'clock in the morning, who's going to be out there watching? But I want to say one thing here. Yeah.
They're waiting.
No, I want to say one thing. We, the town of Lake George, love the snowmobilers. The winter carnivals here have been a tremendous success. Every weekend the place is full of quads and snowmobiles. They're great. They're here to have fun. They spend a lot of money and enjoy themselves, and we love having them here. My problem is we let them go on the bike path, and we never should have done that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything else under this agenda? Okay, we'll move on. Which one are we going, solid waste or public works? Okay.
You know, once you get snow,
The first item on page 2 of the Public Works agenda is a request to amend the budget. This was an insurance recovery check that we received for a vehicle repair that was involved in an accident. The check that we received was for $500, but we're working through the county attorney's office right now because the estimate was $3,000. $2,500. This is to amend the budget for this check-in.
Moved by Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Loeb. Any discussion?
Any timetable on whether we might know the rest of it?
I was hoping for today.
Uh-huh.
I have the county attorney's office working on it. They were making calls yesterday. They just hadn't received anything yet.
Would it be the understanding of the committee to approve a higher amount if we have that nailed down?
With the,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll come up with the exact number. It was $3,009.15, something like that.
Okay, any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next 3 things on the agenda on page 4, 5, and 6 are requests to establish contracts. The first would be for cold and plate recycling. Next would be for cold milling, and the third would be for spray applied waterproof membrane. These are term agreements that we put out every year. We'd be able to use these on certain road projects. for the spray applied membrane is typically used on our bridges. The bids are all out right now, and it'll all be in probably before the board meeting. But I don't have the names of the contractors.
Oh,
Supervisor Dickinson,
move all three.
seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any discussion? All those, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. What we're doing is we're approving these without the numbers? That's what we're being asked to
You're
do?
approving to the lowest responsive bidder.
I'll wait to see the discussion.
Okay, if everybody's all set, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
There's no referral or pending items this month. The last thing I had that I was just speaking with the chairman about is information for discussion review. Ron had talked with you all during the board meeting that he came to our Town Highway Superintendents Association. One of the discussions that we had at that association was Advocacy Day, basically to go down and ask Albany for money. We try to have the majority of the highway superintendents in every town come to this, but I can tell you I've been to it for the last 9 out of 10 years, and every year that I go, there's 3, 4, maybe 5 of us from Warren County. You know, when we go into Betty Little's office or Dan Steck's office, they look at us and say, you guys must have plenty of money because there's not that many people who attend. Now, I was telling Matt that Washington County brings a bus full of town highway superintendents and their deputies down there to ask for money. It's for the CHIPS money, for the Pave New York money, it's also for the extreme winter recovery money, which I found out now that the governor has taken that out of the budget for this year. It's been cut. But this is our chance to beg those guys to do something more for us. So I asked Matt if I could bring it up here to ask all the town highway superintendents, if they're not registered, please call my office, and Joan Wolf in my office will register them, and then we will provide transportation down for them for Advocacy Day. But the more people there, it gives a better indication to Dan and Betty and those guys that we really do need money up here in Warrensburg, or in Warren County.
Send me a tickler.
I will.
What's the date?
When is that?
March 5th and 6th. The 6th is the day that we go meet with all the legislators. The 5th is just a setup and the superintendent's meeting at night, which they don't necessarily have to attend, but the legislative meeting, which is on the 6th, it would be nice to have them all there.
Okay. Sure. Hi, Gina.
Hi, sorry about that.
It's okay. We actually, you weren't here, but we did discuss it.
Okay.
But you're welcome to.
Well, I just, hopefully, can I distribute
Sure.
the same thing?
Sure.
Talking points?
So, we were, on Friday, there was 3 couples staying at hotels, or at a hotel in Lake George. They said they've come here for the last 6 years. A big part of why they come is the snowmobile. And the gates were closed. The one St. Rose gets the lake, and the other one Magic Forest. So we called South Warren Snowmobile Club to find out about that, and not knowing all of the history of gates and protection of the bike paths and everything there, we talked about it, and I knew that this meeting was coming up, and suggested that this would be the place to at least bring it to a formal body to say that, are there some solutions that could be presented in the future, knowing that the snowmobiling population is a very viable part of our tourism economy this time of year, obviously, all around the county, not just in Lake George. And if there are some viable solutions to protect the bike path as well as to protect the snowmobiling money to come here. So that's what we wanted to present. And so some of the things we're to look at, what are they doing in Old Forge? Certainly, it's really at the beginning of those bike paths, right where the gates open, and that's where most of the damage is done. In other places, they've done some concrete there, so that then once you're moving on the bike path, you're on asphalt and snow. but that's where they tend to eat, whatever, and do the most damage from what I understand from the snowmobilers, or at least Mike Film, who I thought was going to already be here, from the Snowmobile Club. But maybe there are some solutions in the future, but just wanted to get it on the table because, you know, before you know it, we'll be done with the season, but if there's something that can be talked about now for the future. So, thank you for that.
Thank you. Supervisor Dickinson.
We should take the mats we got left over from the Asian clams that didn't work and lay them down on the bike path before it snowed.
What's the problem with the mats?
Supervisor McGowan.
What the problem is with the mat is, you know, they're weaved, and those picks. It's the takeoff and it just spins. And if the major problem's at the gates, there is some materials that we can roll down, you know, at the beginning of the season that, you know, are harder, but will allow those picks to slide and not grab, because it will just, you know, I thought about, we have so much carpet, we can lay down so much carpet a bit, but those picks will just eat it up.
Dennis?
Why don't we put in entrance adjacent to the present entrance and concrete it? Get them up, get them going. By the time they get to the bike path, they're moving. Hopefully, it wouldn't cause them much damage. Pretty sure we own quite a bit of property there, don't we? When you come off that bridge where the entrance is now.
At Magic Forest, we don't.
But we have new owners there now too, so, and I'm sure
Yes.
Mr. Ellsworth would.
But Magic Forest, we don't have that property. Down at Stanton Road, we have a fair amount in that.
That's what I'm
area.
talking about, Stanton Road.
Yeah,
Isn't that a major point of entrance right there? Isn't that where they're coming on?
That or at Magic Forest, yes. I mean, not as probably many as Magic Forest, probably more at Stanton Road, because they come down from 9.
Where are they getting on?
Well, Magic Forest,
That's the
that's
beginning.
the conduit to Washington County, and
Right.
that's, a lot of people come from there to us. We don't want to lose that economic
Right
viability.
in front up on Route 9 is where the gate is, so they come up alongside across Wild West around the corner. And
Supervisor Hogan.
We're simultaneously talking about not allowing motorized vehicles on the bike path and offering them an alternative way to access the bike path.
Yeah.
So I think a decision needs to be made before we sit here and go around and
Well, we
spin in circles.
put a considerable amount of effort into our proposal to put in an alternative snowmobile trail. It's not going to happen next week. It'd be lucky if it goes smoothly if it's done in a year or two. So the thought to hold is eventually we'll have a dedicated trail that we don't have to worry about. In the meantime, we don't want to chase all the snowmobilers away. We're trying to get them on our bike path with the least amount of damage. I think if we put in a concrete ramp there and specify that they use it, I mean, when they come out from Wild West, they can go right down 9L, right on the bike trail.
Hogan?
How much would a concrete ramp there cost?
Avoid magic.
You have to look at the price. It's not,
Go up.
I mean, it's not cheap. And Gina's right, Old Forge did do it. Old Forge does it at all the crossings. That's typically where they end up doing it. And that's because most of the crossings are on a town or even a state road. And it's to protect the state roads, or the town or county roads for that matter. So it's not, I don't have a cost. I can come up with one fairly quick and submit it to the committee. There is a cost involved, but it's not only Stanton Road that we have problems. I mean, that it's along the trail in many different spots. And as Brad just said it, or Dennis said it, is snowmobilers have a tendency to gun it. And as soon as they gun it, the carbides rip up our bike path. And again, us closing the gates is just for preventive maintenance, so we don't have a lot of those issues.
You put a ramp in there, like a Northway ramp. You come down and you swing around and give them a chance to accelerate before they merge onto the trail. And then close it off at Magic Forest. Make them come down Route 9, go down 9L. It's huge. You can 3 snowmobile wide trail. Go down 9 into the bridge, cross the road, and get right on the bike trail. I got it all figured out.
We'll put it on paper. We'll look at it.
Okay, we'll take a look at it and see what we can do to mitigate it.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys talked about, sorry.
We don't know what we're talking
We
about.
were just
either.
talking about the issues with, trying to mitigate the damage on the snowmobile trail. Would you like to add anything to it?
Sure, those that don't know me, I'm the stuff. So I don't know what was said, but when it all started, I guess, with some phone calls from hotels, from the chamber, wondering why gates are closed, can't get access to, Washington County. This is not a knock on the way the county's been handling it, they're doing their job, and, I understand the time spent by staff, we all get that. But, when that gate gets closed, it just pinches off some visitors.
Right.
I tell you, half of the snowmobilers that are out there, there's been thousands this weekend, but most of them are from Massachusetts, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Poughkeepsie. They're all coming here to ride our trails. That's the reason they're coming here. And we have probably one of the nicest trail systems in the area, in New York State, for that matter. So, there's got to be a solution.
I think our goal is to get them off the bike path. It just is incompatible with that type of surface, and, to have it open would be the goal. Have the snowmobiles be able to access Lake George from other areas is the goal, without being impeded.
I mean, riding down the side of a road is really not a solution, There's got to be, I don't know why you couldn't use some bed tax money and put it in a fund and prepay, resurface, whatever. That's the problem at the end of the day, is just scratches on the asphalt. There's got to be a way around that.
Well, you,
Right, is that the whole issue?
you did, yeah, you did miss the conversation. We've posed some alternatives. We suggested they have one access, near the bridge, and that we actually put in a paved entrance for snowmobiles so they can get around and get up to speed and merge onto the trail and not rip it up.
Or concrete.
Concrete.
Another thing I brought up is, because what does it? It's the gas and go. And it's on the corners where you slow down to come in, and then you whomp on it to get out because, it's an adrenaline pusher. I've been told this, I've only done it once. But,
And you didn't like it?
And I didn't like it.
You exit.
But, one of the things I brought up is really, educating, in speed control. I mean, how do you speed control? It's a mile, mile and a quarter. How do you, what I'm saying?
Saying 15 miles an hour, there's probably 5 of them out. I'm making an effort, but the cops are over there, patrolling right there.
So they are there, and it's not working.
All my groomer drivers are sheriff officers, they're part of the team, they're trying to help out. I mean, can you lay like some mats or something on that one entrance?
Well, that's another thing I was gonna ask. Is there a mat out there that, you can put in the areas of concern? Because like I said, it's really the takeoffs, everybody's just, gotta get there as fast as, and unfortunately, I would, I know that area and I know it's a concern, so, I don't push it, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But there are people that, are on my butt and they're like, blah, 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 and it's like, hey, just wait a little bit and you'll be there soon.
And it's actually nice right now, because a couple weeks ago, we worked with the town of Lake George, and all that snow, they're moving to the transfer station. We're like, hey, why don't we dump some of that on the bike path here, and we took our groomers, and we created a base probably that thick.
Awesome.
That's the only reason there's not pavement shown right now. So we are making efforts.
So that was a good, we didn't bring that up. I like that idea. What are you gonna do with the snow and those groomers? We can move that snow around beautifully.
No problem. I mean, there's...
All right, we're working on it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah, I know when we looked at them before, when we had the problems, how many feet of scratches are there? Is it just when they accelerate?
It's a couple hundred feet in
So it's not the
different
whole-
areas.
whole bike
No, it's
path?
not the whole thing, no. Really,
That ought to be...
starting points, 508.
But the problem
Starting and
is,
turning.
just so you know, the problem is allowing the snowmobiles on the bike path. And my question is there enough right-of-way to do a side-by-side down through there? I know there's not at Magic Forest, because we had a lot of problems just going where we did, but I mean, is there, on the other area, if you really need that area to get to the lake, is there enough area to do a side-by-side? You're not going to put it on a state road. There's not enough shoulder area.
There is a fair amount of right-of-way in there. Some of that is National Grid's right-of-way that bike path is on, but to do what you're talking about, we'd have to extend all the culverts all the way up through there. It'd be a significant cost to add any extra on.
And in that case too, how do you keep them off of going on, you know, a flat area where you can't even keep them out of the fields, you know what I'm saying? We see natural snow, most people are drawn to it, not me, I've just heard stories of this.
Did you have your hand up, Brad? I'm sorry.
Pardon? I did. I didn't want to wait too long, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mike, I'd be willing to have you and talk with Tim and I, if you know of some mats, as opposed to digging up a trail and putting down concrete, if you know of some mats that, if you got on them with snowmobiles, that they wouldn't spin out, that we could nail them down into the ground for winter months. I mean, we do that with the Thurman Connection. They put all the planks and stuff over the bridges on the railroad. So if you can come up with something and provide it at least to Tim and I to have to take a look at it.
Did you guys put down maps to protect the dog beach or something?
That may be the town or
Last year, someone put some maps down that, I don't know what they're trying to protect, but... They were trying to kill the clams. Yeah, well, they weren't protecting them.
Supervisor Wild, did you have?
No, I was just doing a summation. You know, it's all about the money, right? The snowmobiles are causing damage to a bike path that is used extensively in the summertime. So, you know, everybody comes to the county looking for money, right? So we got to figure out how to make this work. And, you know, I understand what you guys are doing, but it's all about the cash.
It's literally scratches. I mean, Prospect Mountain is paved, been that way for 35 years.
I think you missed the conversation that said it's dangerous for the bicycle riders when it's wet or whether they're hitting stones. So I think we need to take a big picture view about, you know, it's more than just scratches, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
I just want to recap this. We're all about the snowmobiles. We love them, we like to see them here. We're trying to resolve the issue, not make it more difficult. So we're open for any suggestions that you or the club may have, and the money wasn't an issue, it was how to do it and get it done so everybody's happy. Although if you got some money, we can use that too.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running a little behind, so move into solid waste.
Nothing to discuss here.
Back in December, we put out a bid for recyclable, disposable, for somebody to collect the town's paper, cardboard, and magazines. What we believe was the apparent low bidder did not have the proper insurance, and the other one did, so discussions with the county attorney's office as well as the purchasing agent was to put it back out to bid again. So it's out to bid right now. The bids come in next Wednesday, I believe. So this would be a contract to award it to the lowest responsive bidder. The other issue being right now is that the towns, this is for, again, cardboard, magazines, paper, and the towns are probably filling up in their transfer stations. So I had told the county administrator that we had a couple extra containers, and I've had my engineering staff, in particular Todd Beednell, checking with the transfer stations to make sure when they have full or empty containers. Problem is you have no contract to take them anywhere until this gets approved. So I think in our discussion, and I'll let you jump in, the towns could do their own short-term, say, contract with Perkins until we get this in place, which wouldn't be until the March board meeting. I did have a couple extra containers that I'm going to put in, especially the areas that take a lot of cardboard or paper. As of yesterday, Bolton has an empty container, so they are okay right now. They have one empty, one full. Chester has one empty, one full. Horicon has half their container full. I'm not sure by March 15th that they will fill it up. Johnsburg, I didn't get any word back from them yet. Lake George has a half container and then one empty container, so you still have some time with the containers, but if you do have a full one, feel free to reach out to me or somebody in my office, and we'll get, I only have 1 or 2 spares that I can place there until this contract gets in place. Or, as I said, if we have the containers, we can haul it to somewhere for you, but you'd have to probably do some type of short-term contract with, and I think the previous bidder was going to be Perkins, who won it before. So this would be to award that contract to the lowest responsive bidder when it comes in.
Somebody like to move that to the floor? Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor Merlino. Any discussion? Mr. Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin, I just have one request, to just make sure that there's some type of audit or paper trail to say that this material is actually being recycled instead of maybe mixed with trash and thrown down or incinerated.
It will, and if Perkins had the proper insurance in place before, and I'm sure they'll put it in a bid again, it was going to their recycling facility over on Corinth Road.
Yeah. Supervisor Loeb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In this case, the bidding is, they're paying us for the product. It's not much, but it's $5 a ton or something like
Well, that's what the bid was until the insurance. They actually had came back when we asked them for the insurance, and they said it was cost prohibitive to do it. They said they would have to increase it, so now there wouldn't be a credit to the towns anymore. The towns would be paying. So that's why we decided to put it back on the bid so they can know it. And I believe the discussion was pollution insurance, and I believe the discussion was that it wasn't necessary for the recycling, so it was actually taken out of the bid altogether.
So if the insurance is taken out of the bid,
Pollution insurance.
pollution. So we'll be back to them saying, all right, we're going to pay you?
That's why we put it back out to bid again, because the other companies did have the pollution insurance, but we'd have to put it back out to bid so that everybody's on the same playing field.
Thank you.
Okay, we ready for the question? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, this is going to be really... Supervisor Bramer.
I can bring it up later. I was going to say about the solid waste management plan, if we could put that on an agenda for down the road, that would be good. I know that...
Can you give a real quick update?
Yeah, and then we got one more update.
I can do a real quick update on that. The solid waste management plan was completed by DPW back in 2008 or 9, submitted to DC in 2011. DC came back with 2012 comments. Nothing was ever done with those comments. It was through the highway manager at the time. Now it's in my engineering staff. They came back last year with those comments, and Todd Beednell went and had a meeting with DEC, and the conversation basically came to the point that they would submit the solid waste management plan by spring or summer of 2019.
So can we take a look at that before it gets submitted?
You can.
Okay. Also, we thought it would be a good idea for Ryan to update us on the process of the train RFP invitation to bid.
Yes, I'll be brief. We're already over. Since we went into very brief details, I'll give you a bit more as to where our heads have been at on this. So in terms of the operating, we're going to have one RFP. We'll have an invitation to bid in order to narrow it down to the companies that are qualified to do it and that are prepared for the financial responsibility of doing it. There'll be an option to bid as an operator or bid as a purchaser or both to offer options for what the town and the county want to do. The town's with us on the operating. Well, go separately on the purchase. The operating, we are asking that any company that is interested in operating lay out a business plan for freight, because in the past we found that if there's not a freight component, it's not economically viable. So we're very interested in seeing a freight component. We also ask for their thoughts on economic development, tourist trains, etc., uses of that line that will benefit the towns and benefit the county economy. We ask for them to speak to their approach to other uses, alternative uses of the trail, whether it be hiking near the trail, rail bikes, snowmobiles, etc. We'll have them spell that out in their response. All of that also goes for the purchase side. We additionally have some financial pieces in the purchase side which are intended to give the county a bit more leverage in the negotiations so that we can see some of the supervisors' concerns enter into that discussion. We, first of all, will have a minimum deposit required with a bid to purchase. It'll be probably around the area of $50,000. County won't cash the check unless we're serious about negotiating with the bidder. Anybody that is unresponsive or for whatever reason we're not going to consider will get their $50,000 back. Again, just a way to keep responsible bidders, limit the field to the people that can actually do it. In the event that the county wanted to negotiate with a bidder to purchase the line, we would require a 10% earnest money deposit, which would be non-refundable. So the county gets 10% of whatever their overall bid price is. We will set a minimum bid. It'll be in the 7 figures. But we'll hold that 10% to give the county some leverage in the negotiation because the purchaser would be chasing a good deal of their own money. And some of the pieces that we would be interested in having and that we'll spell out in the RFP are an expectation that there will be deed restrictions relating to issues such as rail car storage in the event that the property was sold. And we will also have, again, the considerations for recreational use and reversion. If for whatever reason down the road the freight is no longer viable, there's no transportation need for the rail, and a company that purchased the rail line was looking to get rid of the rail line, that the state of New York and Warren County would have a right of first refusal in the interest of keeping that corridor together for future uses, including a trail system. At some point in time, a trail is probably going to be the destination of this corridor because freight will run out and there won't be an economically viable way to run a railroad anymore. But until that happens, the Surface Transportation Board is in the driver's seat, and they, as everyone here knows, would be responsible for approving abandonment. And they've indicated they won't do that if there's viable economic concerns for running the railroad. The state of New York also has right of first refusal by state law on any sale, including a sale that would potentially be executed by this Board of Supervisors to make sure that the corridor is kept intact. What they don't want to see is someone just buying it for the scrap value of the tracks and abandoning it. So there is additionally that check in place from the state government. But brief update as to some of the things we're doing to make sure this board's concerns are addressed.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I had to bring this up, and some of it has to do with the next meeting we're going to have. But there's a property that we have in South Warren County in Queensbury that we tried to sell. All right, and one of the things that came up about that and has precluded us from moving forward was we needed to have a declaration for the board that the property was no longer of public value, and that we also had to have an assessment. So I'm assuming that the same rules that applied to that will apply to this. So do we have an assessment of what that rail line is, and are we prepared to move forward with a declaration of no public value?
It's not to say that there's no public value, it's to say that there's no value in having it as a governmental property, that the government, in other words, doesn't want to be in the railroad business. It's the same declaration that the board would have made when the board sold Westmount. It doesn't mean that there's no public value to Westmount, it's just that the county doesn't want to be in the nursing home business. And that would apply to this transaction, that's state law, and it would be part of any sale process that this board would contemplate.
What about the assessment?
I don't know if the assessment is a requirement.
It was for other property that we've owned.
Was that a requirement in terms?
The D&G, from what I understood, we can't sell it because it was not, the offer was not comparable or close to the assessed value.
We did have an assessment done, and I think that we had the preliminary results of that assessment, but it wasn't in final form yet when we were contemplating that sale. We did look into
That
doing...
information did preclude any kind of conversation moving forward in terms of a sale.
I don't know that
It was assessed at, or the assessed value, not the assessed value, but the appraisal came in at $600,000. We had an offer for $4. The way it was explained to me is we can't sell it because it's not close enough.
No, we could sell it. It's our property. We could sell it for whatever we think is fair. I think the assessment was done to guide us in that process. And we did spend considerable time looking into firms that could do a railroad assessment, and it was fairly cost prohibitive. And as I said, the state, when they're approving a sale, will be conscious of that, whether we're selling it for the intrinsic value of the property and the scrap. And they don't look favorably on a deal that looks like that's what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Bramer.
So what are we using as the minimum bid value? Are we using the scrap value of the land? What are we doing?
No, I talked to State DOT about that, and they would discourage having a bid based on scrap value. So the minimum bid hasn't been finalized yet, and at this point in time, it would be unfair to talk about that publicly and to give potential bidders an advantage that are aware of this meeting.
Supervisor Hogan.
Are we at least looking at comps?
Yes.
Next week.
Are we what?
Are we
What
looking
did
at
you
comps?
Comparables.
Okay. That's basically an appraisal.
We're just not paying for it.
Any other questions? Thank you. Motion to adjourn, or anything from the public first? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. All in favor?
Who's going to call?
Vacation?
You're open today, Ann?